what do you read into the palace reaction? You know, bemused, perplexed and saddened by Harry's accusations of sabotage against men in grey suits?
So I think he's been doing this to himself, and now he's trying to grapple at any sort of excuse to say why this relationship won't work out between him and his father.
Both sides are still very cautious, but you know, there's no immediate way back for him.
He's trying to spin this to win this. I don't think they trust Harry for a minute.
What would Diana think of that? I'm sure she would be distraught at the current state of affairs. You know, crikey, William's been through so much in his short life, in the full glare of publicity.
There's sort of, I live in a Montecito mansion and these are my problems, and then there's, you know, the real problems that you've spoken about that William's gone through. I think it'll make him a terrific leader, actually.
Welcome to Royal Exclusive, where this week Prince Harry has cried sabotage and raged against men in grey suits as his reconciliation with the King takes a bitter twist. Prince William has opened up about his hardest year and his memories of Queen Elizabeth II while he and the Princess of Wales are invited to Australia. And should Andrew and Fergie do the right thing and stay away from the royal family this Christmas? I'm The Sun's royal editor, Matt Wilkinson, and joining me in the studio to discuss all this and more, I'm pleased to welcome Channel 5's royal correspondent, Simon Vigar, and news commentator, Samara Gill. Simon, I pointed out there that Prince Harry, via a spokesman, released a statement where he accused a story basically on the front page of The Sun. He accused the men in grey suits of sabotage. Now, when I first read this, I had kind of what jumped into my mind was the famous kind of Carry On Cleo sketch where Kenneth Williams playing Julius Caesar was saying, infamy, infamy, they've all got it in for me. But this is quite serious because there are strong connotations here when he's talking about men in grey suits. So what's the history of this attack on the kind of palace aides?
Well, I mean, the first thing I thought of was Diana, his mother, because she, of course, attacked the men in grey suits when she felt she was being briefed against all those years ago back in the 90s. Congratulations on the scoop, by the way. And I think what's remarkable in the weeks since Harry and Charles have met is that they've mostly kept a lid on it until your front page there. Yeah, Prince Harry claiming sabotage. And I think, you know, obviously it's very early days. Both sides are still very cautious, but, you know, there's no immediate way back for him. I'm not sure he's looking for an immediate way back either, but yeah, that's the story. Well,
it's complicated over the last couple of weeks. There has been, you know, drip feed of different information, and we stand by our story. He has it, you know, Harry has his kind of story. But what did you think, Samara, of Harry's reaction, as you pointed out there, where he's accusing of things of, you know, almost conspiratorial plot against him in Buckingham Palace?
It's always someone else's fault, isn't it, with this man? I mean, genuinely, it's the media plotting against him. It's the media making his wife unpopular. I think Meghan's done that to herself. I do think that he can never, ever take accountability for anything he's ever done. I mean, we know about this visit, that he had to go through the visitor's entrance of Clarence House because he had to get patted down by security because he is not on a sort of, you know, welcome basis with the King in that way. He's not on sort of a father-son relationship at the moment, I feel like it could be said. So I think he's been doing this to himself, and now he's trying to grapple at any sort of excuse to say why this relationship won't work out between him and his father.
Well, I mean, the story was, or the line that we used, and I didn't think it was massively contentious, really. It was that they, you know, father and son greeted each other, they kissed each other on the cheek, they exchanged gifts. There was a birthday present to Harry, because he was 41 a few days later. Harry gave a framed photo. It turned out it was of Lily and Archie. And they then sat down and had tea. And at some stage, Harry has referred to the fact that it felt like it was an official visit. Sorry.
Well, he feels that he's been briefed against the whole time. We know that, the grievances from in the book and Netflix and whatever, including the half-in, half-out deal that he thought was possible before Megxit happened, and he says that they were forced out when he thought that there was a middle way. So he's felt he's been briefed against pretty much his whole life, and this is part of that. But you know, the exchange of gifts and, you know, kissing on the cheek makes absolute sense, as you say. The big sadness at the centre of all of this is that the King hasn't seen those children in since the coronation, and you know that. So the photos are pretty much the closest he's going to get.
What do you think about the palace reaction to this? I mean, we talk about Harry coming out saying sabotage, and then there was a later statement accusing the men in grey suits, has the connotations, as we pointed out, dating back to Princess Diana's gripes. But we were told, I think it was like 48 hours later, after Harry had put this statement into public in reaction to our story, that the palace were a bit perplexed, bemused, and saddened. I mean, what do you take about that reaction that the palace had come out with?
Well, that absolutely rings true, doesn't it? It's very early tentative stages, as you know, and at some point, presumably, Harry and the family are going to come to the UK. Obviously, we know security's all rolled up in this, and that long-running row over security. So it's baby steps at the moment. We saw the two teams, who were pictured earlier in the year getting together. So I think there might be blips like this, but the movement is hopefully, at least with Charles and Harry, that the feud obviously has come to an end and they will see each other more.
Well, that's the line that almost we're being fed from California, that there was a push towards this reconciliation. I mean, we're not going to go into contacts and sources and stuff like that, but the original kind of line was that we've been fed out for the couple of weeks, that I think there was a quote from a palace source actually in one of the newspapers a couple of days after, saying that the Sussexes may well have mistaken tea and cake for the signing of the Treaty of Versailles. I mean, the Sussexes may have got a little bit over the top, and maybe this story is a little bit more realistic, that it's not all roses and happiness and between the family.
It can't be, can it? Because of what was in the book and what was in the Netflix series. There's trust. There are trust issues. Harry wants an apology. The other side wants an apology. And between Harry and William, the rift is still very real.
What do you read into Samara? What do you read into the palace reaction? Bemused, perplexed, and saddened by Harry's accusations of sabotage against men in grey suits.
I think the palace reaction it rings true, but I also think that they know that this has come at a very interesting time for Harry. I mean, we do always talk about Harry, but we need to talk about Meghan and Harry as a duo. Meghan is probably in one of the worst professional places she's ever been. Her podcast has been effectively cancelled, that she had Confessions of a Female Founder. Netflix is looking for first deal. Her Jam didn't sell out when it was released. She's in a really bad way, and I know that I do say this quite often, but I do think the money is drying up as a couple, and that's why they now want reconciliation, because for the past 5 years, all they've been doing is dragging the King and Prince William and Catherine into the mud. And now they want reconciliation? The timing is really strange, and I think the palace is privy to the fact that there's something up, maybe, in Hollywood, in Montecito.
Do you think the timing is difficult to understand? Why now? I mean, Harry did say in that interview with The Guardian, he said, well, the next year with the King, the coming year with the King is my main focus, which kind of worried me. I mean, it's almost like you put a time limit on the King. It's not true, by the way, that anyone's briefing on the King like that. But why now? Why is it so important? Why is he getting so angry about this sabotage and reconciliation, or alleged sabotaging of a reconciliation now? I
think it may be as mundane as logistics. We knew he was going to be in the UK in September. The Well-Child Awards, for example, he never misses the Well-Child Awards. In fact, it was the Well-Child Awards in 2022 was the only reason he was in the UK when the Queen was gravely ill, and then he went up. It
was on the same day, wasn't it? Literally, yeah.
So I think it may be as something as mundane as logistics, and of course it would have been really weird if he had been in London and Nottingham for 4 or 5 days as he was and hadn't gone to see his father, the King. The previous comment he made when he lost the High Court case on security about he didn't know how much longer his father had, that obviously went down like a lead balloon. But the King is still undergoing treatment for cancer, and I think if Harry hadn't seen him on this visit, that would have been really odd.
Well, he could have. I mean, the King's been in Balmoral, still up in Scotland, spending lots of days relaxing. He's had all his family up throughout August. I think literally every member of the family. Even Andrew went up there Andrew and Fergie went up there for 5 or 6 days. If he wanted to see his father, Simon, could he have not at some stage? The King's still there till the end of September. Couldn't he just phone up to Aberdeen and sat around and met the King at Balmoral for a couple of days, rather than turning into what is effectively a circus over 52 minutes inside Clarence House?
Yeah, well, it was a circus, wasn't it? We were both there, standing there in the pouring rain as his car turned up. Yes, he could do that. I go back to security, which with the court case we've covered several times, which he eventually lost. It's all rooted in that, isn't it? He's proving a point that he is not safe. He is a target in the UK. He should be afforded the same level of security he had before Megxit. So, yeah, I mean, part of that circus is created by everything that goes around, his security detail.
How do you think we should move forward? We want to be stuck here in this moment for too much longer with this, with Harry yelling sabotage. The King's team or the palace are saying they're a bit perplexed and bemused and saddened by his reaction. But going back a couple of weeks ago, we were hearing things from I believe, from California, that there were moves to maybe have a half in, half out for public engagements with the King. I think there was a line about trying to show up William and show that he could actually do some work. I mean, where are we going on this?
Well, that week of engagements a couple of weeks back, where he did Well Child and he went to Nottingham for the youth project there and so on, that was classic old school Harry, and he's really, really good at it. And it was a bit of, this is, look at what you're missing, I think. The half in, half out thing, William is implacably opposed to that. We believe Charles is as well. The Queen went along with it during that Sandringham summit. When they had the world was their oyster, as we know. The Queen had given them that Commonwealth role. I don't see that happening any time soon, but maybe in the next year he will bring the family over to see Charles, and hopefully, that things can sort of normalise after that. But I go back to the sadness of this, is the King has not seen those children for years. And, that you've got another branch of the family growing up in California.
Well, what do you think the end game is here, Samara? What do you think Harry's ending with this allegation of sabotage against the men in grey suits, as saddened and perplexed?
He's trying to spin this to win this, first of all. He's trying to spin it so that the royal family will then say, well, OK, we might try and let him in. But as you said, Simon, the late Queen said, you cannot have it both ways. You can't have your cake and eat it too. And to quote her, you can't, well, not to quote her, but she can't have the one in, one out policy. She wasn't a fan of that. And I think now he's trying to get his way in. Now that she's gone. But I think with Harry, as you said, when he was back here and he was doing those royal engagements, yes, he was great at them. He can only do tricks like that. He hasn't been good as a TV producer. He hasn't been good, doing polo, trying to get Netflix deals. Meghan can't do her cooking show. They've exhausted all other options. And so now it seems like they're just returning home. But the question will be, will the royal family allow that, as you said, Matt?
Well, he needs the reconciliation with his father. I mean, this is my point, is like, it's all fine and dandy coming back and having a bit of a roadshow for a couple of days, but without, proper chatting, proper meeting his father. It's just a random man coming back, doing a couple of charity events and going away.
Yeah, well, I think that's probably what it will be for a few years still. But he still has Invictus. He still has, the various... and then the sort of semi-state visits as well that they've done to Nigeria and Colombia and whatever. So, I don't know. I find it hard to see that they will be back as working members of the royal family. But we know, never say never.
Never say never. Well, in this industry, you never know what's going to happen sometimes. It changes week to week. Before we move on from Prince Harry, I just want to get a prediction maybe. Where will we be this time next year? Because you're talking about September. He's always over here in September, Simon. He comes over for Well Child. Last year we didn't meet the King. This year he did briefly meet the King. We're reporting that Harry's reaction was that it felt like an official visit. What are you thinking this time next year? We'll be sitting down here and discussing that it moved on from the official visit stage, and we've got Harry and the King walking around the garden, hugging, having loads of pictures, going to an engagement? Or are we going to be stuck in this moment?
Maybe not loads of pictures. I think, he's said he wants reconciliation. Maybe he will stump the bill for the full security that he wants for his family in London, which he feels he's not getting from the government and Scotland Yard after that court case. So maybe next year he brings the family over and there is, one official photo, but I don't think it'll be lots of engagements. How about you?
I mean, I don't see Meghan stepping foot in this country for a long time. I mean, she's even expressed sort of that herself. But in terms of Harry, I mean, I think that he's really trying to get back into the fold before his father, passes, because after that, I don't think there's a chance. So when we want to look 1 year into the future, yes, I would love happy families, but I don't think they trust Harry for a minute. So I think that that's what's going on. They're not going to allow him back into sort of the sanctity of that royal fold.
And I don't think it helps with the allegations of sabotage and
No.
back and forth kind of crazy. I've just realised, actually, there's talk about men in grey suits. I'm wearing a grey suit today. And that's not deliberate. There's, you know what I mean? It's just an accidental
Sure.
off-the-peg thing this morning, by the way. There's nothing to read into it before we move on. Now, the Australian Prime Minister, or your Australian Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese.
Finally useful.
He was in Scotland. He went to Balmoral to spend some time with the King at the weekend. Interesting, I think. He spent 90 minutes with the King in Balmoral at an official visit, and he handed over a framed photograph of the King, Camilla, and his partner, very similar to Harry's official visit up in when he went to Clarence House. But did you see his comments afterwards? He was interviewed by, I think, the Australian press were up there with him, and he's extended an invite to Catherine and William to go to Australia.
Yes, I think this is Anthony Albanese, our Prime Minister, wanting to boost our economy, get the spirit in Australia up. I mean, we always love a state visit in Australia. We absolutely love it when any of the royals touch down. There's absolute fever that happens. And I mean, even when the King and the Queen, Camilla, came a couple years back, that was absolutely, everyone went berserk and bonkers. I remember just kind of being a bystander in some of the events that they went to. And yeah, you've never seen anything like it, because we only get sort of tastes of the royals, few and far between. And of course, there is a bit of a Republican movement in Australia. It's always been a question. And we've got Anthony Albanese is he's a Labour Prime Minister. He's a bit more on that side, but I think he's got a lot of respect for the royal family. And I guess once that invitation is extended, it's hard to say no, right? I mean,
with the situation now where he said he's hopeful, there's a standing invitation for a tour in the coming period. I mean, what we have a lot of Australian viewers that are getting very excited. I've seen on my social media timelines, people were very excited about what would it mean to Australia to have Catherine, William, and maybe the 3 children.
I think it would mean everything, genuinely. I think that they represent this sort of nuclear family that everyone wants to look up to. You know, the kids are now old enough to actually properly appreciate and experience things. And I also think this would be a great foray into royal touring for them, especially if they go during the summertime, which I would recommend, sort of a January type of date. It would mean a lot to Australia. And I think that every time they come, the economy is boosted, and I don't want to make it all about money, but I think that's what Anthony Albanese is thinking about. Not to be cynical, but yeah, I mean, Catherine and William, they're the favourites in Australia.
There would not be, I don't think there is a bigger tour that could possibly be arranged anywhere in the world than that family of 5 to go to Australia with the setting and the people out there. We recently went there for the King and Queen's tour, and it was absolutely incredible. But Simon, you were there, I would believe, back in 2014.
2014 was a mega
William
tour.
and Catherine and George was
a baby. Yeah, he was there at the zoo meeting some of the animals at the zoo. That was a mega tour. I mean, William eventually will one day, unless they get round to a referendum, will be King of Australia. It is one of the 15 countries where the head of state, the King, is the head of state. So that tour was huge. The crowds were amazing. I interviewed somebody from the Australian Republic and the movement there during that tour, and he said, "We've blown it. We're going to have to wait years. We're going to have to wait years now." By the way, the Harry and Meghan one in 2018, that was huge as well.
I remember that.
That was before everything went a bit pear-shaped. But I remember on the William and Catherine one, they'd been married a couple of years then, and the crowds were so big they had to split up to do the walkabouts. So they would arrive at a venue, the walkabout would be divided into 2, and one side would get William and the other side would get Catherine. And when the side who were getting William realised who they were getting, you just hear this, oh. And luckily he laughed about it in the way that Charles didn't laugh about it in the 1980s with Charles and Diana. But I wasn't covering those, but apparently Charles didn't.
That's right. He said he needed 2 wives, didn't he, at some stage, or needed 2 Princess Diana.
But there was a big cheer for the side that got Catherine.
Well, it's a very rigorous trip, though, and her health is obviously still got a big question mark over it. Obviously, she is in remission from cancer, but she just only gets wheeled out for those very, very sort of important events, such as the state banquet that we had 2 weeks ago. So I think that it's a very chock-a-block schedule. And will she be well enough to do that? As you said, because she's the star of the show, she will be needed basically on a 24-hour cycle.
Sorry.
And they don't announce, I mean, as we know, they don't announce a lot of these engagements for Catherine way in advance, just in case they have to cancel. As you know, the king has had to cancel some engagements as well. Not many, but they don't, that's a big deal, obviously. Just the flight itself, just the journey itself is a big deal.
We've got a blueprint. I mean, the king had a day or two off when we arrived last this time last year. He had like a little, spare day, and it was only about 6 maybe days, and then we went to Samoa, so it was quite a truncated one for the king. So there is a bit. You mentioned there about Catherine. Well, she always does. She often steals the show. People want to see her, they want to meet her, and they want to get a picture with her or be in the same orbit of the Princess of Wales. When you went, I'm sure there was a quote from a Republican group saying that that Prince George was like the referendum killer, or he was the Republican killer. If they took the 3 children, would imagine Louis, Charlotte and George, they could steal the show from Catherine.
Yeah, probably. I mean, I don't think they'll be at every engagement. What happened last time, obviously George was just a baby, was that he stayed in Sydney and William and Kate went off and did engagements at various other cities and places, and then came back to Sydney each night. Well, obviously the kids aren't babies anymore. But yeah, I mean, Louis, all our eyes are on Louis on the few public engagements he makes to see what he's up to see whether Charlotte is telling him to behave and whatever. Yeah, it'd be very interesting to see how the opinion polls go in Australia and New Zealand and Canada over the next few years. But there are no imminent plans to hold one, as far as I know.
Yeah, I mean, Australia is so divided at the moment politically. I do think that the Prime Minister's got something in his mind about they are the great unifier for us. And I think that would be incredible.
It's obviously weird to have your head of state as somebody who lives on the other side of the world. I mean, that is obviously an empire hangover. But my question is when and obviously Republicans felt that the last referendum was rigged against them last time in 1999. But when will there be another one in Australia?
You say it's the other side of the world, but as Samara proves, a lot of them come over here as well. There's a lot of cross-pollination, but they might be 10,000 miles away, but I think we're very close. I feel we're very close to Australians, particularly that trip with the King recently. I think it was such a wonderful, warm reception for him. I thought it brought both countries a lot closer, even though the King is 10,000 miles away.
Yeah, and obviously there are still a lot of monarchists in Australia.
Oh, yeah. Big time.
Are there a lot of young monarchists in Australia? Or am I just imagining that it's people of a certain age? Or?
That's such a good question. I don't think there are, and I think something like bringing the whole family and those younger children, as you say, which will be the blockbuster standout of it, and will take all the sort of limelight in a good way, would be a great way to sort of get a younger generation sort of with the royal family.
All right, well, I'm not quite packing my passport yet, but we'll have to wait till if there is a formal invitation and an announcement. Talk about limelight. Prince William's in the limelight because he's starring in this new Apple Plus, I think I've got that right, Apple TV show with Eugene Levy called The Reluctant Traveller. They've been drip-feeding certain clips. We've been allowed to watch it, but I think it's out on Friday. Prince William, to be fair to him, he's really opened up in this. He's showing a lot more emotion over the last couple of years, and maybe rightly so, because he's been through quite a lot. And what we know so far, what we've been allowed to report so far, that he's spoken about, I'd say that 2024 was the hardest year I've ever had. Similar to what he said in Cape Town last year, it's probably the hardest year. He's now decided it is the hardest year. He's talking about, life is sent to test us and overcome, and being able to overcome that is what makes us who we are. And then he also opened about Queen Elizabeth II, spoke about Queen Elizabeth II, saying she loved it at Windsor, and he misses her quite a lot. What do we think about this Prince William, this kind of new man in touch with his emotions, who wants to talk about his hardest year and his memories of the late Queen?
Well, I think it's so tasteful, and it's such a change from his abrasive Hollywood brother, to be honest, who sort of goes and leaks and goes and does sort of slapdash interviews with the BBC, complaining about everything. He did say that, last year was the hardest year of his life, and I feel like the public could see that. We didn't even need that admission from him, but it's good to have that. And I think he said that it's taught him a lot, and it's great to see the human side of our future king, because I think it brings us closer to him. So I have nothing but admiration for how transparent he's been able to be.
The clips I've seen look great. As you say, they're sort of drip feeding it at the moment, but there's humour in there as well. And the most poignant part is to do with talking about Granny, because Windsor was her favourite home. In the last few years, it was her home most of the time. And he wanted to give Eugene Levy this tour, the sort of tour of the castle that his grandmother would have given someone. And the reason, one of the reasons she loved Windsor was, of course, there were stables there, so she could be near to her horses. But yeah, I think William, last 10 years, has been opening up a lot more about mental health with Heads Together and everything, and he sees the benefit without going into psychobabble. He sees the benefit of that, and crikey, William's been through so much in his short life. In the full glare of publicity. Good on him.
I find it incredible that and I remember when we spoke to him, or as a Rota group, we spoke to him in Cape Town when he was on his Earthshot Prize, that 2024 was the hardest year of his life, because you point out there he's had one hell of a life. If you think, his parents splitting up, for instance, divorcing, his mother dying, the Queen Elizabeth II passing away, his brother abandoning him and moving to the USA, you realise just how difficult coping with his. Do you know what I mean? Like, it really does. When you look at his arc of his life, you realise what a changing point that was for him in his 42 or 40, early 40s now, mid 40s.
And without his mum there for most of that, and going through the rift with Harry as well, what would Diana think of that? I'm sure she would be distraught at the current state of affairs. So he's dealing with all that as well, and Catherine. There's been a lot.
You mentioned about that you compared William and Harry. Harry has a different, Harry moans a lot on TV or puts statements out a lot. But they all are sharing their emotions a little bit more now. Harry has done an Apple Plus TV programme with Oprah Winfrey. We was talking about some of the mental issues that he had. Catherine has. She's spoken quite openly about. In some of her videos, some of her moving videos, she's opened up a lot. And even the King, I remember after his cancer diagnosis, remember there was a video with him with Rishi Sunak, and he was talking at the Prime Minister at the time, with Rishi Sunak, and he was talking about the hundreds and hundreds of nice cards that he had received that kind of made him cry. We are seeing a royal family more in touch with their emotions than we have seen in the past.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Queen Elizabeth II would not be speaking in that way, certainly not with a camera in the room, but even without a camera in the room, it's not the sort of thing she would do. So, yeah, I mean, Charles obviously is more tactile publicly than Elizabeth II was. She grew up in a different age, in a very different environment. And William, son of Charles and Diana, there will be more informality.
Yeah. Long may it continue?
Yes, absolutely, but there are tasteful ways of doing it. I probably wouldn't recommend the juxtaposition of Meghan going to Bloomberg and saying that it was really tough living in the royal family because she had to wear pantyhose. There's a spectrum to being self-aware, and I think William has that, and I don't know about his brother and his wife.
Really interesting point. Thanks for that. I'm going to steal that one and have when I get to talk about this point. That's really interesting. The juxtaposition really is, because you look at them and you think, well, they are all talking about their emotions, but there is a difference, isn't there, in the way it's presented?
There really is. There's sort of, I live in a Montecito mansion and these are my problems, and then there's, the real problems that you've spoken about that William's gone through. I think it'll make him a terrific leader, actually.
Yeah, no, really good point. I had forgotten the pantyhose. But Harry's, I would say, in his defence, Harry's been through it too. And, whatever you think about what's happened in the last 5 years or so, Harry's been through it. And, of course, was younger when it happened. Not that makes any difference. But.
OK. All right. Talking of problems, always a problem, Andrew and Fergie. There was a report over the weekend, I think in the Sunday Times, that sources close to the King are kind of suggesting there's not going to be a ban for Sarah and Andrew as such, but a kind of almost polite back-channel request to ask maybe if it would be the right decision that they could maybe excuse themselves from Christmas celebrations this year like they did last year. Is that a wise suggestion, Simon?
Yeah, because it just becomes the story of the walk to the church at Sandringham on Christmas Day. That becomes the story, doesn't it? And we've seen in recent years, not last year, how much they enjoy it. I mean, they visibly enjoy doing it. The walk to the chapel at Easter, and it just becomes the story. I suppose they obviously could go to Sandringham and just stay at the house and not do the public part of the walk to the church and back. But somebody would get a photo somehow, wouldn't they? And that then becomes the story.
Those dastardly journalists, Simon.
I'm all in favour of it. Well, not trespass, obviously. But somebody would it just becomes the story, doesn't it? And everything else, the Christmas message is then overshadowed. So, I'm sure they will stay away again. I'd be amazed if they go.
Well, they're going to ask for their judgment, aren't they? They're going to but sometimes their judgment isn't right, is it, Samara? But they're going to lean on their judgment and say, maybe this is use your brain and this is the right thing for you to do. Excuse yourself from Christmas.
I don't know if they are Tweedledee and Tweedledum. I'm not sure if that much brain activity is being used with both of them, as we can see with their record. I mean, the sort of hell that they put the royal family through with all their different scandals that have reared their ugly head. Mostly this year, I feel, obviously it's been prevalent throughout the years, but I just think this year would not be the year to be showing up to that Christmas and taking the media storm. If they've got any judgment, they won't come.
It's you can't ban people from a family funeral. So the Duchess of Kent's funeral a few weeks ago, obviously they were going to go to that. She was dearly loved and will be dearly missed. You did not have to be a body language expert afterwards to see how much William enjoyed standing next to his uncle. Yeah. I mean, that was very clear. Don't talk to me. I'm not, I'd be amazed if they do that walk at Sandringham on Christmas Day.
It was pointed out to me that the King, as head of the Church of England, can't ban people from going to a church. It would be a very bad look to say you're banned from going to a church.
No, you can't.
So you've got to ask them to use their own judgment, which we know hasn't been that successful in the past. Just a couple of quick questions on this. Did you see that the City of York has discussed removing... they granted the freedom of the City of York to Sarah Ferguson in 1987 after their wedding. They recently, or after Andrew's public indiscretions, they removed the freedom of the City of York from Andrew. Is this a punishment for Fergie, or is it a bit meaningless? What do you think, Simon?
What do you get to do? You get to drive a flock of sheep across the
largely symbolic,
down the high street.
Yeah.
It would be symbolic. I know there was a petition at the height of the Newsnight furore. There was a petition in York to remove the titles, but I don't think that went any further. That would require an Act of Parliament. It would also require the signature of the King, so it's very unlikely. But the freedom of the city would be a symbolic snub, wouldn't it?
Well, it was a kind gesture to recognise them, and now maybe they don't want to recognise them. It's difficult for places because you have the Duke and Duchess of York wrapped up in scandal. You have the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. I mean, do people in York and Sussex really want to be associated with these names?
Well, some MPs in Sussex have tried to put that one forward as well. Meghan's only been to Sussex once.
Yeah.
It's Megan Sussex. That's my name. That still hasn't caught on for some reason, but yeah, I mean that name has been sort of marred in scandal a little bit. Both of them, actually. So yeah, I think a lot of people don't want to be associated with the tarnished brand anymore. I mean, I don't blame them.
Well, I'm from Reading. We don't have a Duke or a Baron or a Prince of Reading yet, so let's wait and see.
Royal Berkshire.
It is the Royal County, absolutely. Right, guys, we've just got time for our quickfire questions. OK, so take a deep breath. They are relevant, hopefully, to what we've discussed during this show, so let's see how we get on. What gift would you give the King if you were his official visitor?
Ooh, I think... So Catherine gave the Queen some chutney for the first Christmas that they spent together, like a handmade one, and I think that is perfect. This is the man who's got everything. I would try to hand make something, probably something that's not edible, knowing me, and try and give it to him, because that man, I mean, there's nothing you could give him that he doesn't already have.
A framed photo of me and Prince Harry. He'd love it.
You were being naughty.
Got a lot of frames on the mantle.
It was taken a while ago when he was talking to us, but yeah.
Do you have
I'm sure the King would enjoy that.
I think he would respect that, and he'd say, "And you are?" Right. Second question. Moving on. After Prince William's appearance on Eugene Levy's Apple TV Plus show, which show would you like to see the Princess of Wales star on?
You're going to hate me, but something like Housewives. She's not a housewife, but like some sort of like
unlikely.
tawdry reality show where she's like like of all the princesses, and it's their drama. I know that's not very highbrow. I do apologize, but I would just relish in watching that.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of TV shows, but yes, a TV show like that. But Traitors. I think she'd be really good at Traitors.
Ooh.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Because it's Celebrity Traitors is
Yeah.
coming on.
Yeah.
What if you had the entire royal family in the Traitors mansion?
Oh my gosh, hold on to that idea. Yeah.
Well, if only TV's X listening, that could be gold.
Actually, that TV castle that they use is not that far from Balmoral.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Well, there you go, be easy. Do it next summer. Right, and final question. Where should Andrew and Fergie spend Christmas Day?
In the dungeon, away from the cameras and the press and the royals.
Pizza Express. Woking.
Very good.
Surely.
I think that's a good answer. On that note, we'd have to wrap up. So thanks, guys. Had a lot of fun. I think we went through a lot of great topics as well. So thanks both.
Thanks.
Right, that's all we have time for on this week's Royal Exclusive. Thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments as we do read them. And don't forget to subscribe so that you never miss an episode. We'll see you next week.